Citizen Kane. It's often called the greatest film of all time. But why? What is it about this black and white movie from 1941 that continues to captivate audiences and inspire filmmakers decades later? Today, we're going to dive deep into this cinematic masterpiece, exploring its groundbreaking cinematography, Orson Welles' genius as both actor and director, and of course, the mystery behind Rosebud. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into classic films. Whether you're a movie buff or just curious about the legends of Hollywood, this channel brings you stories that keep the magic of cinema alive. Rosebud. First, let's talk about the plot. Citizen Kane follows the life of Charles Foster Kane, a wealthy newspaper tycoon who dies in the film's opening moments. As he lies in his palatial mansion, his last word, Rosebud, sets off a mystery. What does it mean? The film then jumps into a series of flashbacks, told through interviews with people who knew Kane, as a reporter tries to uncover the meaning behind Rosebud.
It isn't enough to tell us what a man did. You've got to tell us who he was.
Through these flashbacks, we see Kane's rise from an idealistic young man who wanted to tell the truth in his newspapers to a media mogul more concerned with his personal interests and influence. Initially, Kane uses his papers to promote what he believes is the truth, but as time goes on, he moves toward yellow journalism, sensationalizing stories for his own benefit. This shift reflects his moral decline and the growing distance between the idealism of his youth and the cynicism of his later years. At one point, Kane even fires his best friend, Jedediah Leland, with whom he started the newspaper, for writing a truthful review of Kane's second wife's disastrous opera performance. Leland's insistence on maintaining journalistic integrity clashes with Kane's growing need for control and self-preservation, and their friendship falls apart as a result. As his power grows, Kane isolates himself emotionally. He builds walls around his heart, pushing away those who care for him, including his two wives. His ability to connect with people fades, and his relationships become more about control than love.
There's only one person in the world to decide what I'm going to do, and that's me.
People will think
What I tell them to think.
Now, let's talk about the man behind it all, Orson Welles. He was only 25 when he made Citizen Kane, and he didn't just direct it, he also starred in it as Charles Foster Kane. Imagine having that kind of creative control over a film at such a young age. As a director, Welles broke new ground with this film. He wasn't afraid to take risks, and it shows in every frame. From the use of deep focus, which we'll get into later, to the way he structured the narrative through flashbacks, Welles pushed the boundaries of what cinema could do. He wasn't just telling a story, he was experimenting with how that story could be told. As an actor, Welles's portrayal of Kane is nothing short of brilliant. He takes us on a journey from Kane's idealistic youth to his bitter old age, and you believe every part of that transformation. What's fascinating about his performance is how he keeps Kane emotionally distant from everyone around him, including the audience. Throughout the film, Welles builds a wall around Kane's character. Even though we learn more and more about his life, Kane remains a mystery. He stubbornly holds on to his emotional isolation, never letting anyone get too close. It's this complex emotional wall that makes him such a tragic figure. A key part of Kane's personal downfall is his relationships, particularly his marriages. Kane's first wife, Emily, comes from a powerful political family, and their marriage is initially a strategic one, tying him to the upper echelons of society. However, it quickly becomes clear that their relationship is strained. Kane's obsession with his newspaper empire and his need for control over everything, including Emily, leads to a growing emotional distance between them. One of the most famous scenes depicting their deteriorating relationship is the breakfast montage. At first, they sit close together, sharing affection, but as the montage progresses, they grow physically and emotionally apart. By the end, they are seated far from each other, barely speaking. This simple but effective sequence brilliantly shows how time and power eroded their marriage. Eventually, Emily leaves him after discovering his affair with Susan Alexander, a young singer. Kane's affair is a turning point in the film, and it's not about love, it's about his need to possess and control. He marries Susan after Emily leaves him, but this second marriage is built on superficiality and manipulation. Kane tries to force Susan into becoming a great opera singer, even though she lacks the talent or desire. He builds a massive opera house just to showcase her, using his power and wealth to make her into something she's not. This relationship isn't about love. Kane is trying to shape her into his ideal version of success, ignoring her wishes and needs. The scenes where Susan breaks down from the pressure of trying to live up to his expectations are some of the most poignant in the film. In the end, Susan leaves him too, tired of being controlled and manipulated. Her departure leaves Kane completely alone, sitting in the vast, empty halls of his mansion, surrounded by wealth, yet emotionally bankrupt. Now, let's dive into the visual side of Citizen Kane. One of the most revolutionary aspects of the film is its cinematography, led by Gregg Toland. Together, Toland and Welles created some of the most iconic shots in cinema history. One of the standout techniques they used is deep focus. This means that everything in the frame is in sharp focus, from the foreground to the background. Why is this important? Well, it allows the audience to see multiple layers of the story at once. For example, in one famous scene, young Kane is playing in the snow outside, while inside, the adults are discussing his future. Both the innocence of Kane's childhood and the control others have over his life are visually present in the same shot. It's a brilliant way to show how Kane's fate was sealed from an early age. Another key innovation was the low-angle shots, which were used throughout the film. In Citizen Kane, this technique was groundbreaking. Welles and Toland placed the camera at floor level, filming upward to make characters, especially Kane, look towering and powerful. At the time, this was unconventional. No one had broken the traditional rules of keeping the camera at a standard height. Welles even had the floorboards removed in some scenes to achieve the extreme low-angle shots. These angles gave Kane an almost godlike presence, but at the same time, they also made him appear isolated and unreachable, symbolizing his emotional detachment from the people around him. The use of lighting and shadows also played a huge role in shaping the film's tone. In many scenes, especially toward the end of the film, Kane is shown in dark, shadowy rooms, visually reflecting the growing emptiness and darkness in his life. The cinematography wasn't just for visual flair, it was key to telling Kane's emotional story. Of course, we can't talk about Citizen Kane without addressing Rosebud. From the moment Kane utters that word as he dies, the audience is hooked. What does it mean? Is it a person, a place, some long-lost love? As the film progresses, we learn more and more about Kane's life, but the mystery of Rosebud lingers. It's not until the very end that we get the answer. Rosebud is the name of Kane's childhood sled. This revelation is simple, yet incredibly powerful. Rosebud represents Kane's lost innocence, a time when he was truly happy, before wealth and power took over his life. It's a symbol of the happiness he could never reclaim, no matter how much success he achieved. The brilliance of Rosebud is how it encapsulates everything about Kane's emotional journey. Despite all the interviews, all the flashbacks, no one, neither the reporters nor the people closest to him, could fully understand what Rosebud meant or what it represented in Kane's life. Only the audience gets to know this secret, which adds a layer of poignancy to Kane's tragic story. For all his power and success, Kane died longing for something as simple as a sled, a childhood memory of pure happiness that he could never regain. So why is Citizen Kane often hailed as the greatest film ever made? It's not just about the story or the acting, it's about how this film changed cinema forever. Orson Welles and Gregg Toland didn't just follow the rules of filmmaking, they created new ones. The use of deep focus, unconventional narrative structure, and innovative camera angles set new standards for how films could be made. The use of low-angle shots, in particular, was revolutionary, breaking the visual norms of the time. Welles and Toland weren't afraid to experiment, and their willingness to push boundaries resulted in a film that feels fresh and innovative, even today. But beyond its technical brilliance, Citizen Kane resonates on a deeply human level. It explores themes of ambition, loneliness, and the cost of success. Charles Foster Kane is a man who had everything, yet he spent his life searching for something he could never truly find. His story is a cautionary tale about the pursuit of power at the expense of happiness, and that's something that still resonates with audiences today. In the end, Citizen Kane isn't just a movie. It's a cinematic experience that still feels relevant even over 80 years later. Orson Welles' vision, both behind and in front of the camera, set a new bar for what filmmaking could be. Its groundbreaking techniques and emotional depth make it a timeless masterpiece. So, so what do you think? Does Citizen Kane deserve its place as the greatest film of all time? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this review, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the greatest movies ever made.